Guys, welcome back. Sdho. How are you doing? We are still on the attack. The last 6 SDHOs have all been back to sound design in Ableton Live, and maybe we'll return to the AI and the spiritual stuff at some other point in time, but we're going to keep going. We've done sound design in all of Ableton's native synthesizers, but I wanted to still play around and have fun, but I wanted to focus at least first on envelopes, ADSR, and we've got the ADSR down here. The envelope always has, so if we go into envelope 2, we've got the ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, release. And I want to shed some light on the envelope because no matter what synth you're using, whether it's an Ableton Live native synth or if it's like a plugin synth or any synth, there's going to be an attack, decay, sustain, release, ADSR. That's what the envelope is. Synths all have envelopes and LFOs. And envelopes and LFOs are how you modulate sound parameters. So they're very important to know. And so my philosophy when I teach sound design is that it's not about like learning wavetable and learning analog and learning operator. When you realize that they all have similar elements and that you just, once you understand how these synthesizers work, their architecture, you can then approach learning a new synth and it'll just be easy because you'll be like, oh, where's the oscillator section? Oh, it's here. Oh, here are the waveforms. That's the waveform I'm going to use. Okay, here's the filter. Okay, here's the filter envelope. Okay, where's the volume envelope? Okay, where are the LFOs? Like, they're all going to be there. The only thing you would probably need to know is what kind of a synth is it? Is it a subtractive synthesizer, like analog? Is it a frequency modulation synthesizer, an FM synth, like operator? Is it a wavetable synthesizer, like wavetable? It doesn't really matter. You'll be able to figure out how to use any of them. So like subtractive synthesis, if there's a filter, which they're all going to be, you've got subtractive synthesis. If you've got the ability to do frequency modulation, you've got an FM synth. And nowadays, especially with wavetable, when you've got a wavetable that you can scan through, you've got wavetable synthesis. Although wavetable also does FM and of course does subtractive synthesis because you've got a filter, which you always are going to have a filter. So I want to kind of look at envelope. I want to look at envelope to help you understand it really well, and then we're going to keep just having fun. Okay, so it's not like we're just going to be like talking about envelopes the whole time. I'm not that boring, guys. I'm not that bad. I'm not that boring. I do like to geek out though. It's because I want to like figure out stuff, you know? So when you open up Wavetable, you'll have it like look like this. And what is this? It's a sine wave. Let's get our friend Spectrum. What? Mate. Where did that put that? Oh, okay. Kind of wanted you on the wavetable track. Wonderful. Sine wave. Because obviously, as you know, we don't want any of this. That's the beauty of wavetable. We just want sine wave. Wonderful. Where do you start with envelopes? You know, ADSR. Where do you start? Here's the hint. There's always going to be a volume envelope, and it's going to be hardwired, meaning you don't have to assign an amount like you have to with the filter envelope or any of these. envelopes, which you would assign in the matrix. By the way, have you escaped the matrix yet? So if you're having a hard time understanding the envelopes, ADSR, you're always going to have one that will be hardwired to the volume envelope, also known as the amp envelope. So right now, and so by the way, I like to kind of set mine a certain way. So I don't know what yours looks like. It might look like this. I don't want that. I want the sustain all the way up. I want max volume. So when I hold a note, I want it to be max volume, which is this wavetable with the master volume at -9. So if I hold a note and keep it pressed, I'm holding it down. Look at how it just holds this volume. Now look if I brought sustain down. See how it's slowly going down, and now it's going to sustain at this level. It took 3.38 seconds on the decay to get to that level right here. See it, mate? Now, if I add the attack, what do you think's going to happen? It's going to take 900, let's just make it, it's going to take a second for it to go from no volume all the way up to its peak volume, and then it's going to decay for 3 seconds while I'm holding this note. Simultaneously, if you had a MIDI clip and you had like a long MIDI note playing, it would do this. And then after that 3.38 seconds of it going from its peak volume down to the sustain right here, if you keep the note pressed, or if you have a MIDI clip and it's a long note and it's playing, it's going to maintain a sustain of -6.5 decibels from that peak amount. So watch. And it's going to stay there. And the release is how long will the volume of the note play until you release it. So right now it's a second. Let's make it longer. And I know you can't see me holding the note down and releasing it, but I'm sure you can use your ears. And that's an important thing too. You always want to be using your ears. Use your ears, mate. So let's get the hell out of wavetable. Analog. By the way, if I don't know what your analog looks like, maybe it looks like this, maybe it looks like this, I don't know. Turn the bottom ones off. We don't need that. And go into oscillator 1, go into a sine wave. Turn off filter 1 because we don't need it right now. We just have our oscillator and our amp. Remember? Oh, what do you know? Now yours might look like this. I keep it again, as I mentioned, up. Wonderful. I want to show you that the amp envelope is always turned on, hardwired. We wanted our filter envelope. We could play around with the filter envelope. It will do nothing until we sign an amount. That's true for wavetable, true for analog, true for operator, and I'm assuming true for all synths, unless of course that's only an Ableton thing, which I doubt. As I mentioned, I like to keep it completely up, and then if I want something different, I will then adjust it. So if you would like yours starting off how mine is starting off, you can do it like this. And if you say, well, how do I do that? Any device, whether it's a synth or an audio effect or anything, you can always right-click on it and go Save as Default. Alternatively, on analog, when you click the filter section, this envelope down here might have an amount, so it will be applying an envelope amount to the filter. I keep it at 0. I think it's on like 4, so you can, do that when you do your Save as Default preset. So right now we're going to push a note, and because the volume envelope, which is always on, all the way up, sustain, it will play the full volume all the time, and there won't be any attack. It's not going to fade in like that. It's just going to be there. It's just going to be on because I want full volume all the time, unless I don't, and then I will change it. That's why I like to leave it like this. And it fades out for 500 milliseconds. I like long decays, so I'll just make it a little bit longer. So release is you're holding it down, you release the note, and then that's the release phase of the envelope. And you hear that as the sound continuing to play, the volume. But what if I turn it all the way off? Or not all the way off, but like what? Horrible, mate. But maybe you're like, yo, mate, but I want that dumbass sound. I want that dumbass sound like that. But listen when I bring it out. I like that. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. So why would you want to change things? Well, maybe I want the volume, because that's what we're in, to fade in. I want to start at 0 and bring it up. So you would make sure you were in the amp. You want to give it an attack. Now notice how it's giving it this exponential curve. You could do that. Make it linear. Doesn't matter. Notice how it's fading in. So it's fading in over 2.64 seconds. It's reaching its peak, which is set by the level of the amplifier section here. Obviously, we still have the master volume over here. It's reaching its peak, and as long as I hold down the note, it's going to sustain at that note. And then when I release it, it'll take 2.5 seconds for that volume to fade out. Now, if this was being applied to the filter, which we'll get into, the same thing will apply, but to the filter, wherever the filter is set. So when my student, and I say student, singular, because I have one student, maybe you could be the second student, and I have very reasonable rates, which are very cheap, and we do it over Zoom. And so we would be able to get on Zoom, and then you, through Zoom, can mirror your screen, and I can hear everything going on. And it works. In fact, you actually download like a Zoom audio driver, which you do select in Ableton. So I'm able to hear everything going on your computer with no latency, no issues. So that does work. And yeah, so my student was like, was a great student. I don't know if he's watching, but he was like, yeah, the ADSR kind of trips me up. And normally I would just call it envelope, but I think like a lot of people think of it more as like ADSR, which like there's no envelope if there's no ADSR. There's no ADSR if there's no envelope. It's like the same thing. And I was trying to help him get a good, firm understanding of it. And I was like, oh, well, like when you're in wavetable, you're getting very good at wavetable. So if you want to get a better grip on the envelopes, because you know how you're comfortable with modulating the filter cutoff, adjust the envelope and apply it to the filter, okay? But then I realized after a few days of thinking, if I were to explain this, if someone's like, I need to understand envelopes, I would say, if it's already hardwired to the amp to volume, get that down right away. So for instance, we're still an amp. Let's put the attack to 0, and let's take this sustain here, and let's bring it all the way down. Okay? And this decay, let's bring it all the way in. It's awful. The volume envelope, only 55 milliseconds. So it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you were only getting volume for 55 seconds, which says start the sound all the way up, and over 55 milliseconds, which is so short, go all the way down to nothing. Doesn't matter what you would do, you would only get those 55 seconds. So that's why you would maybe bring out the decay. Wanted to hold a note and have it ring, which I love. You would probably want to bring the sustain up so you could just hold it. And you could still have like, maybe not like full sustain, so when it hits the peak, it just slowly goes down. Wonderful, wonderful. And then we can add a filter. It's going to do nothing because a filter operates on the harmonics and a sine wave has no harmonics. So let's go to saw wave. And so we're on a low pass filter, so it's saying let all the lows pass. And let's adjust the octave. So now we're letting in everything above 1,000, above 2,000, above 4,000. So how do we apply this to filter? Well, I don't want it this buzzy and bright. I don't want all the harmonics. I want to cut them out with the low-pass filter. I guess that's kind of nice. Let's give it some resonance, which boosts the filter cutoff. You're playing very subby, bassy notes. I would go into the master settings. I'm like forgetting the name. Go to voices, make it mono, so you don't have like multiple bass notes ringing. It said, hey, may put some glide up on chick. I want to hear some of that glide up on chick, especially because you be doing it now in the monophonic. Glide 50%. So our filter. Oh, an LFO is going to cycle that. So we've enacted the LFO. It's on 0.9 hertz. We would go into filter. We need to assign it. Crappy. You can see it on the spectrum. I kind of want to see this move. So keep in mind at any point you can go into audio fix. Drop an LFO. Map it to the filter. Adjust the depth because I don't want that crazy. Adjust the rate. And LFO is just kind of cycled around. You could change it, you know, like by going to, like, oh, I want square. No, let's just listen to this saw down. Look at it. Let's get a square wave. So it's like on, off, on, off, on, off. Play with the depth. Wonderful. So what is the LFO doing? The LFO is moving that filter. But what if we wanted it to do something else? What if we wanted to get an envelope on seal? Okay, my thoughts would be, let's take out all the high frequencies we don't want. that's not really going to cut through the mix. That's when we want to use the filter envelope. So because we're in this filter section, not the amp section, not the oscillator section, but the filter section, I want to like take it from being oop and swoop it down to here, which means I need to not have it all the way up. I need to swoop it down. Nothing happens because, as I said, it's not like the volume envelope, aka the amp envelope. We have to assign an amount. So envelope right here, envelope amount. Listen to what happens when I start turning it up. Play with the decay, which we can turn it here or we can do it here. It's too much. Let's lower the envelope. By the way, 16 is the most you can do. And there you go. Now you got resonance here. Look at what happens when you do it to resonance. It gives it that, like, I think it's called a 303 acid base sound. What's when you do with the envelope on the resonance? That would be like taking the resonance up and bringing it down. Listen to what happens. You can adjust the filter frequency, which, by the way, this envelope is applying to both the filter and the resonance, so you don't have like a separate one. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Let's go back to wavetable. So let's try to work all of this into going back to wavetable. Why wavetable? Because if you go to the matrix, by the way, have you guys escaped the matrix yet? Filter. By the way, if you are in the matrix and you have not escaped the matrix, no, I'm just kidding. But if you're in the matrix and you're not seeing something like filter one frequency, just click it. So if I want to like adjust warp, click it. See how it goes up here, filter. And if you have an amount assigned, it will keep it there. So you don't have to like always go in there and like, you know, click the different things. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So let's take a stroll through the wavetables, shall we? Let's apply an envelope to something different than volume or filter. Let's do it to what makes wavetable unique, this wavetable synthesizer. But before we do, let's go to the envelopes. Not envelope 3, not envelope 2, which won't do anything unless we go to the matrix and, you know, adjust and assign a value. Remember, we had to assign a value to the envelope. Remember I said the amp envelope is always hardwired? Let's hit a note. It's doing this. Forget that it says 1 millisecond on the attack. That's nothing. We might as well just put it there. And I'm holding it. That's why it's sustaining. That's why sustain is almost all the way up. But I could do this. But I like to keep it open until I don't want it that way. So I can hold a chord, and look, it's going to maintain the volume. And if you're not too familiar with the spectrum, it is the decibels in loudness or volume, and then the frequencies on the x-axis. This y-axis is the decibels, volume. Wonderful. How you doing, Chunky? It's Donkey. So, let's take a stroll through the wavetables. Galactica. When you scroll through, see this like yellow line? That's the waveform. So rather than being a square wave or a saw wave or a sine wave, it's this. It's going to give you everything. Let's take down the semitones. Shift down arrow. again. You can take the filter and take them all. Then you could go to envelope 2, bring it down like this, go into the matrix, escape the matrix, make sure filter 1 is up. If it's not up, make sure you click on it and start assigning. Notice how you're getting the visual feedback. It's starting there, and because the envelope 2 says start up, which means oop, and then it wants it to go swoop down, so you go swoop down, and that's what you do, mate. Look, watch. Notice how we're getting visual feedback. We didn't have to put the envelope MIDI on there. We didn't have to put the LFO, free-running LFO on there to get visual feedback. It just did it. Now, perhaps, because I'm using Ableton Live 11, and I'm not using Ableton Live 12, even though I did buy Ableton Live 12. Notice, I think they may have added some visual feedback to operator analog, which I hope, but just want to mention that. So you do get the visual feedback. But notice how this stays the same. But what happens when we move it? Now, how would you move that? Well, you would go to the LFO, silly, and what you would do is you go to the matrix, and then what you would do is you would go to LFO 1, and what do we want to modulate? Well, we don't want filter. Nope. We want oscillator 1 position. How do we know that? Because this is called oscillator 1 position. You can see it even moving down here. So, but notice how it keeps going up. That's because when you go into the LFO, there's always going to be a retrigger. And if right now it's like activated, which means it's always gonna like go up, then down, up, then down, up, then down, like it always does. But it's always gonna start from a new note and go up and down. But if you turn it off, see how it's going around? Wonderful, 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 wonderful. So, let's do something else. Let's keep playing around. Now, why is it that way? Because we've got the filter on a low pass. Now, maybe I want that to like open up and growl at me. Okay, let's go to envelope 3. Let's give it an attack because we want it to go oop. And I kind of want this shape. So the attack goes up for 2 seconds, decays down for 6.5 seconds, decays down here. Let's go into the matrix. And okay, we've got filter frequency. If we didn't have filter frequency, we would click it. And so what is it, envelope 3? Envelope 3? Okay, add some to envelope 3 to filter. It's adhering to this shape. See how it's slowly going back over 7 seconds? But then it's going to stay there. Let's do it again. Give it more release. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Back to the matrix. Turn it off. Let's get a different one. No, not this one. So actually, no, let's stay on this one. Look what happens when we move it. This would be one I would just want an LFO to smooth it around. But what I like is when we have these ones where like there's a sine wave in there. Basically a sine wave. Look at it. Wherever that yellow thing is, that's the waveform. I'm going to turn this all the way up. Now, let's apply that same sort of a theory to make a filter, or excuse me, make an envelope, take it all the way up and swoop it down, right? Because we don't necessarily just want a sine wave, and we don't want it to be this bright with all the harmonics. We want it to go. So that's when you would use an envelope, because an envelope does it for you. So let's see, envelope 2 is here. Okay, let's do it to envelope 2. Now again, if you don't have it, now we could do it to the filter, but we don't want the filter. We want to do the oscillator one position because this, lots of harmonics, sine wave not so much. So oscillator one position, go to envelope 2, bring it up slightly. Look at the waveform feedback right here. Of course, you know what's going to happen when we bring it up. And then you can play with the decay. Are you getting this now? Now, I'm going to go into the matrix. Take it off. I want some of that. So let's go into alpha 1. Apply the oscillator 1 position. Because like, if I want it to sound like this, I don't want to like move it by my hand. So let's give it some alpha 1 position. That's too fast. So go into alpha 1 and like lower down the hertz. It's moving too much. So let's go back into the matrix and lower it. If I wanted to do that, which I'm doing that with my hand right now, I could like go to alpha 2. So you could do all of that. Let's get out of the spectrum. Wonderful. I wanted to get into that. So like if we went to operator, we don't need oscillator D. We don't need oscillator C. We don't need oscillator B. Yeah, maybe we should go back to our good friend spectrum. There's a sine wave. We could go to a square, but we don't want to go to filter. Kind of want the be bassier. Look, it's not a low pass filter, of course, but I want to give it some punch. So when we move around, I don't want to play around with the volume envelope. Again, yours might be like this. No, I like to keep mine up. Go to filter. There's a filter envelope. Not going to do anything, as I was saying, until you give it envelope amount. Play with the decay. Sustain, which you can just move with this. And adjust both at the same time. Can even come into here. Give it like a filter drive. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Now, because we're in A, hold it, look how it sustains. What if we took it down the sustain? Move out the decay. Let's go. When I release the notes, that's why you should probably give it some more release. Oh my god, it's still doing that. Why? Go to filter. Give the filter some release, which you can do right here. But if you would rather like see it like this, you've got the envelope filter like that. computer overheating. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. So yeah, I wanted to get into that. Envelopes. You can't have an envelope without ADSR, attack, decay, sustain, release. What is you trying to be the police? I know you are, you crazy authoritative figure, you. Trying to get some power, some sense of control over your reality, mate. No, you're not doing that anymore. That no longer brings us satisfaction. We want to try to come into unity, come into balance, come into peace, stillness. Congratulations. Congratulations from me to you. Want to know why? Because there's no reason to learn any of this. AI will give you all the music that you could ever need. You don't even have to learn coding anymore. Anthropic's Claude 4.5 Opus, Claude Opus 4.5, does all of it now. So what does that mean? No one's going to quite learn how to code the same way anymore. Why would you? Unless you truly cared. If the AI does it for you, and you need to create something, a product, why do you care? Maybe you need a good sound for your project. Maybe AI creates that good sound for you. Maybe even creates some custom macros for you. Why do you need to know how to create it from the ground up with operator, analog, or wavetable? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Do you need a product? Or are you enjoying the process? Well, right now, we are enjoying the process. You don't have to do this. No one has to do this. No one has to learn sound design. But we want to. I want to. I learned Ableton with the idea that I wanted to learn how to make everything from the ground up. I learned Blender, a 3D computer graphics software, because I wanted to make everything from the ground up. You are probably interested in learning all these creative pursuits because you want to create your essence, your idea, your whatever from the ground up. You want it to be yours. Otherwise, you would not be learning these processes. If you needed a product, AI would make it for you. So what does that mean? That means nowadays... Oh, hey, Chunky. Nowadays, if you're learning coding from the ground up, if you're learning sound design, whatever, Photoshop, After Effects, Blender, Cinema 4D, Ableton, Pro Tools, if you're learning it from the absolute ground up, it's because that's what you want to do, because you want to create, because it feels good. The process is amazing. It is satisfying. It is all you. But if you need a product, AI will give you the product. Let's pretend you make videographies. You make like video essays. You need specific music because you're a wonderful creative person and you need specific music. But you don't open up a Pro Tools or an Ableton and make music. If AI is able to give you the exact music you need so you can share your creation with the world, then you need a product. You don't need the process of what we're doing right now. But if you want to be doing this artistic process because it feels so good and it's wonderful to dissect all of this stuff, then pat yourself on the back. So don't fear AI. We'll talk more about AI another time. And I just wanted to say thank you for tuning in. Hopefully you understand envelopes better. And thank you very much. You've been great right now. We'll talk later. We'll talk soon.